Everyone, New12 here, and welcome to the recap for episode 5. Man, episode 5 was absolutely crazy. So much shit happened. But we might as well start off with, what I thought about some of the new characters. Erica staying for last, because I have a lot to talk about her. With Delanor. Well, I liked her. She's a interesting character, for sure. I like what she brings to the idea of mysteries and all that. This kind of rule and commandment set being, brought into fairly late into it is very strange, and I like it. I wouldn't have minded if she came in earlier, but now that she's here, I kind of had to just deal with her. And especially since she belongs to Erica, it's a lot harder to deal with than if she was on my side. I like that she's not as heartless as Erica. I really do. As much as Erica says, how heartless she is, it's kind of ironic that it's the other way around. That she actually has a heart, while Erica doesn't understand any of that. Then we get, their two servants, or I shouldn't say servants, but two helpers with Gertrude and Cornelia. It is Cornelia, right? Yeah, Cornelia. And, interesting. Double O. Oh, wow, it actually tells me how to pronounce it. Thank God. I didn't know actually how to pronounce this. But, anyways, back to these two. I don't really have much to say about them. They're kind of just an offshoot of Delanor, I would say. And so they're kind of just there, I guess. I want more steaks, though. Oh, God, I want more steaks. Erica. I have a lot to talk about her. And this will also go into Burn as well. Because there's a bunch of different levels I want to touch on in this, with just like her character, and then what her character represents, and then what it means for the story. So to start with what I think about her character, I fucking hate it. I despise it. I despise the nitpicky, the intellectual rapist. I hate the idea of going into a story and just ripping it apart and, just taking out, the mystery and doing your damnedest just to tear everything apart just to look for your answer. Don't like that at all. So, her being introduced as this character, as this detective, really, at least for me, turns it into a fight between magic and mystery. That, you can't have both existing at the same time, which we've already been doing that, but it just adds a different idea to it. It makes it much easier to root for magic than the human side. I still don't believe real magic occurred. I believe, fake magic or just a human did it. However, it doesn't mean that I should rip apart anything unnecessarily. Me disproving, Natsui's talk with Beatrice, unnecessary. Disproving that Kenzo talked to her in an affectionate way, not necessary. It doesn't lead to a story. It doesn't lead to an answer. It doesn't lead to anything that really matters. So it's... Wait, can I execute her? That'd be nice. Of course not. I can't be fucking... hoping. No, but it just... It's I find it as cruel and disgusting to see. And I really want to see her just exit stage left and never come back. But sadly, it doesn't look like we're going to get that. Hopefully in episode 4 we see her end. I would love that. I would absolutely support that 100%. What it means for what her character represents, the way I see her being, is a couple things. One, it's the idea of the detective being, just this unbelievable godlike character that can do no wrong, that doesn't care about anything, etc., etc. And it's kind of flipping it on its head, saying, this is how ridiculous it is. The idea that, listening into a room for, a full night after everything that's happened, it doesn't matter. She can still do it. She has perfect vision, doesn't have to worry about anything like that. Comes prepared with duct tape that she somehow found, or some form of tape that has her name on it, so you can't forge it. It's just these kinds of things that it's absolutely ridiculous to assume that they would have any basis in reality. And it just shows how absolutely fantastical it is. Fantasy right there. As much as they say with the detectives, you have to have an element of fantasy if your detective is that crazy and that on board with everything. No, I get the whole, you need hints. That's fair, but then there's taking it to Erica's level of there's no hint by abusing your powers of doing that. Which is where I really don't like it. Because it's putting it to bullshit level territories where it's just, this shouldn't be able to happen. If this is, because I'm coming in from there's no fantasy as well, where there shouldn't be at least fantastical things happening like that. It's ridiculous to assume so. And the other thing that I think she represents, other than just the detective trope, but it's also the regular person that goes too far. And when I say too far, I mean when someone doesn't care about the story, but only cares about disproving magic, only cares about solving the mystery. That the relationships between each character, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about, what Natsui felt like. It doesn't matter who she loved, who she didn't love, because it's not provable, because you don't have the red truth. That part for sure was against people that probably have that same mindset, that if it's not in red, it doesn't exist, or it can't be possible, or it's a lie. That mindset's definitely real. I did have that mindset at first. Once it was introduced, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just not going to trust any whites. That's not realistic. You can't do that. It's just impossible. It's impossible to think that way. It is possible to think that way, but it's ignoring a massive amount of this story. Because her saying you can't trust anything that isn't in red, and that anything in white is there to deceive you. That whole idea is just amazing, the way she phrased it, because it's not in red, it's in white. Her statement can't be true at all. It's just impossible. So you can't just rely on the red. You won't get anywhere in this story without understanding that, hey, the red's not everything. And I'm starting to look at it that way. The red's it's an extremely nice hint and tool to use, but the real stuff comes from the white text, because you have to determine what's fact, what's fiction, what's happening, what's not happening, what's this person's real emotions, and what are they just lying about. That's where it really comes into place, and by saying everything's a lie, it denies a lot of the interactions with these characters, and you'll start falling into a lot of contradictions if you just believe everything's a lie. It's a lot of contradictions and a lot of falsehoods that you could be easily avoided if you just think about it for more than 2 seconds. The love. Natsui doesn't love Kraus because you can't prove it. If you think for more than 2 seconds, yeah, you'll understand that she loves Kraus. It just doesn't make sense. Coming from a person that was able to see the whites and saying, she doesn't want to get a divorce, she wants to stay in by the family. She might have thought those at one point, but it's clear that she doesn't anymore. But if you don't believe any whites, you'll still assume Natsui's guilty, because there's no way to prove it. So it's important to understand that, at least for a motive, relying on the red is not going to give you a motive. It's just not. It's there for the how and why. It's not there for the motive. how I've seen all of these read so far. They're there to rule out certain motives like revenge, or maybe give some hints, but it's not going to outright just tell you what the motive is, or the why. And I think that's an important thing to look at least. What I think about other people, at least, with the way I look at it is, I'm glad. Well, I shouldn't say glad. I'm very interested to see how I reacted to certain magic now versus then. Because looking back on it, I was pretty harsh on magic. I definitely was. With magic that doesn't matter at this point, I don't care. I'll accept it. Whatever. It doesn't matter. That's not part of that's not part of what I'm disagreeing with. I'm not here to disprove magic exists. I go to Angie. I'm not here to disprove all magic. That's not my place. That's just not what I'm going to do. I can't disprove all magic. That's not what this story is about. This story isn't about disproving magic, at least for me. I don't see this story as just disproving magic. If that was the case, they wouldn't frame Erica in such a dark and nasty light, in the light of an enemy, if we're just here to disprove all magic. She would be our ally. We would be Erica if that was our job. But I think this whole answer arc thing, I think, is to show, hey, magic isn't actually that bad. Sometimes you can just, let it be. And I think that's what's going to continue on as a trend. Because it's an important element of the story. It seems like it's going in that direction. And I'm right there with it. I have come full circle. And I will say, some magic, yeah, sure, let it happen. Maria's happiness with magic, sure, let it happen. Doesn't matter. I don't care. Why do I have to disprove it? What does this solve? What mystery does this solve? What gotcha does this have? It's just very interesting, different ways to look at Erica, at least, because she portrays a lot of different ideas with just rejecting a lot of things regardless of what other people think or or feel or whatever. It's very interesting. She doesn't care about anyone else, only solving the mystery. She doesn't care how it's going to affect them, doesn't care how much sadness she brings to someone. She just wants to disprove something. And it's very interesting that she's being portrayed in this light. Or at least I'm seeing her in this light. And it really makes me look back and reflect on the story so far. And why being just anti-magic isn't the answer. It's not the point of the story. To a degree, it is being anti-magic. It's seeing beyond what magic is representing and seeing, how the humans did it, recognizing why magic was being used in the first place. I think that's the angle I'm going to go for. I will disprove magic, but at the same time look at why magic is being used as this scapegoat. Because in Higurashi, it's the same thing with this idea of the scapegoat. I think magic is the same thing. This magic is trying to be passed off as something as you push the sin of whatever onto magic and onto these magical beings, so it's not our fault that it happened. Not to be pushing her sin onto Beatrice, on this magical being, because it's not our fault. And so it goes back to the idea of the scapegoat. And the scapegoat wasn't actually bad. It was portrayed as bad in Higurashi. In the beginning, it was portrayed as very bad. This curse, this magical entity, was viewed as a negative idea and a negative emotion and a thing that caused death and destruction. However, it gets changed. It gets flipped around once we see what actually happened. And we realize, no, the scapegoat's necessary. This is the same thing. That the magic and the scapegoat of magic is important to the story. It's important to these characters, and by destroying this, we're destroying their happiness. We're destroying their scapegoat. And the idea that, we don't necessarily affect them. But we do. We have seen it actually affect. Because when Byrne had denied Natsui's Beatrice, it looks at Natsui and it paints an entirely different light of the situation. She doesn't look happy. She looks extremely upset and extremely sad. Or I shouldn't say extremely, just upset and sad and lonely. The idea of us destroying it, even just for ourselves, still paints the world into that negative idea. Because I look back to it and say, what's the point? What's the point of denying it? Because maybe an answer, that's what we're supposed to do. But is it? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Are we just supposed to comprehend the magic and understand, yeah, we already know it's fake. It's obvious that it's fake. And if something's that obvious fake, why spend any time disproving it? That's what I see. With Natsui's scene, with Kinzo's scene, I see no point in disproving that because it's so obvious and easy to disprove. So what is it saying instead? Instead of disproving it, why is it being shown then? That's what I'm going to start doing. Anything that's obvious, why is it being shown there? Or why is it important to this character that it is magic? Or this character did show up here and there. With Natsui, it's important Kinzo showed up because she wanted to feel better about herself. She didn't want to feel like she was a burden on her family, didn't want to feel like a waste of space, yada, 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 all of that stuff. With Beatrice being in the garden, she was allowed to, to speak her emotions, how she felt about Kraus, and, how she felt, alone without having Kraus there, but still loving him even from beforehand. That she wishes they could go back to that moment, even though they can't because they have too much responsibility. That is what I think is the point of what we look at the magic scenes, and I think I might go back and see the other magic scenes. Because I think that is important to understand moving forward. Oh, man. She's definitely an interesting character. I don't like her at all. I can't stand her. She's an interesting character. Doesn't mean I have to like her. I can say that, at least. Same with Byrne, because they're one and the same, basically. Except just one's a lesser being than the other. But both don't care about the happiness of other people. They only care about making themselves happy. And the way I see it is, by me disproving someone, it kind of takes... I would, in a way, represent Byrne by doing that. Because it's just pointless. It's pointless cruelty. There is no end goal for doing this. It's just, because I want to solve it. But it's easy. You can look at it for 2 seconds and already know the answer. So why ruthlessly pick it apart and keep doing that if it's so easy? Whenever something appears to be easy in this, nothing's been easy in here. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. Everything has either been hard or just appears to be easy, and then it turns out, wow, that's actually extremely hard. Everything has been so far, and I don't think this is when it's going to change, when just all these magical scenes, it's really easy because it's just easy. It wouldn't make sense just coming from a story sense, going from something really hard to just saying this is fucking easy. It is meant to look easy, because then it's like someone stepping on a small animal, and that's how it's being represented here. Erica is stepping on like a rabbit or something. It's just absolutely ridiculous. There's no point to it. There's no challenge in disproving Kinzo's existence. There's no challenge in disproving Beatrice talking to Natsui. All these things are easy to disprove, yet harder to understand, and why they're being understood and why they're being shown. That's where the challenge comes in. So I'm going to move past but just disproving, but looking beyond that. That's what I'm going to be doing. I will still disprove everything. I'll still solve every closed room because it's fun to do, of course. But that's not the goal. The goal is to see why. And with that, I go into my culprit. I still am 90% sure, 99% sure that Canon and Shannon are one and the same. I really, really do. I think that that's the truth that Battler reached, and I'm interested to see if he tailors the game to that truth or not. Whether if he does, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't, and I'll still have to just keep going. But I really think that is the reality that is the truth, because it explains a lot of different things. And if we go to that baby being thrown off the cliff or pushed off the cliff, it's possible that that kind of trauma would create a lot of issues. And the sin, I think, by Battler is, Shannon brought it up, that, Battler used to say a lot of things. They used to be close together. I think he said he'd be back. He doesn't come back. He waits, 6-7 years, and she's been waiting this entire time. And so this waiting has just made it fester inside of her, just this absolute loneliness. And once she's going to get married to George and leave and think she forgot about him, Battler shows up, and it's just like it's twisting that knife in the wound. And being him showing back up absolutely sends her over the edge, saying, because she was just, closing the door on that relationship, but he just comes around at, the absolute worst time when she's going to get married to George. Because she obviously cares about Battler. She still loves him. She wouldn't, blush around him or remember what he said to her if she didn't have feelings about him. This whole thing wouldn't happen without his sin. So if he never showed up, this never would have probably happened. I think that's the truth of this game. I'll actually look at tips. Anything new? Nox's Decalogue. Okay. No, nothing new. Go back. I think they are. These two are one and the same. I think so. I mean, it's not too hard to pull off. They have the same eye color. Just wear a wig. I'd assume the baby, if I remember it, yeah, it was a male baby. She might, have mental trauma, and her split personality does split it into these two individual people, including Beatrice, to make it 3 individual people. And it really, that kind of trauma would lead to a lot of loneliness, a lot of rejection, because as a baby, from the very beginning, they've believed that they're unwanted. So any form of love that's going to be it's going to be very twisted. So, and then Battler abandoning them again, go figure, probably didn't feel the best, coming from a child that was abandoned earlier. So that's probably the sin. Natsui's sin, it goes back to the sense of not loving and abandoning the child, though a little bit more harsh with the abandoning, I'll be honest. I don't think the baby died, clearly. I think it somehow lived. Maybe some people, she said some people probably went down there and just said he was dead. They probably saved it and ended up putting it into the foster home. Then they grew up, came back, whatever their name is, became Shannon because she was there first, then later became Canon as well. Hopefully, if they are the same people, and the next game goes along with the idea that they're... Can I execute people? No, I can't. Interesting. If the next game does go the way I think it will, it will be blatantly obvious that they are two people. Because I think Battler will make it in a way that will make them similar. Or at least kind of hint and nudge at them that, hey, they're actually one and the same. I think that's what the next chapter is going to go for. But that's probably about it. The characters, I'm really enjoying the characters. Natsui, I feel absolutely god-awful for. I want to take care of her, make her feel all better. So, because she's had a rough life. And, I mean, throwing a baby off a cliff isn't exactly the best thing either. But her position, I don't want to say it's understandable again, but I've already explained it, but it's a tough situation that she's put in. It's a very unfair situation that she's put into. Especially with the ideas of what that symbolizes, as that baby symbolizes to her. And it's a shame that, you know, she did have the baby killed, that she couldn't say no. But I can't necessarily fully blame her for it either. Because I can see why that would really, really upset her and bother her on a level that's really, really deep and personal. Battler, he's just fucking clueless. His sin is just being an idiot and promising something that he can't, you know, commit to. Because we also got that, Beatrice saying, you know, how he's a liar and all of that. And that would go back to him promising to come back. He doesn't come back, he's a liar. That's all she knows him as. So I think it's important that that's the sin. And this whole idea of the sin isn't for revenge, it's for acknowledgement and repentance for this sin. That's what I think this episode was for. I think it's a mirror of episode 4, but instead of Battler, it was Natsui that it was being done to. She just confessed to it a hell of a lot quicker than Battler did because she knew what was wrong. She knew what had happened. Battler doesn't realize what he's done wrong, which ends up, of course, hurting Beatrice more because not understanding what you did wrong doesn't help at all. It does make it sting more. So there's a lot of different things going on in this episode. I'm really looking forward to episode 6. This is a quicker one because a lot of things haven't changed, other than what I've explained, and that basically took up all of it. With me changing how I'm going to approach this story, how I'm going to approach these characters, how I'm going to approach all these scenarios. All of this is just going to be radically changed. It's just, this whole episode made me take a 128-degree turn on how I'm going to look at everything. Not completely 180, 128. Because I'm definitely looking at magic starkly different, but I'm not going to just accept it as real. It's not real. It's just there for a scapegoat, for not taking blame for the actions of what's happened. It is a necessary scapegoat in this story. And that's what I really, really think is the key to understanding this. At least from a magic perspective. The whole, you know, with the love it cannot be seen. I do acknowledge that as well. Erika doesn't have love. She doesn't believe in love. I can see why Natsui didn't do it because of love. She has love for her husband. She has love for her daughter. She just wouldn't ever kill either of them because she loves them. It doesn't make any sense that she would. And I think it's not that magic is just a scapegoat. It is also an act of love, because for Maria, it's trying to get her mother and herself together. And it's a shame. It really, really is. That's just a sad, sad scenario. And, it just makes me sad all the way around. And same with Natsui's situation. She wants, the magic in itself is to make up for, a lack of love from Kraus that she feels, or, a lack of togetherness she feels with Kraus. Even though, he did do better. He did do better in this episode, and it feels good. I will give him credit where credit is due. It's just, I want both of them. I want everyone involved to be happy, honestly. Magic or no magic involved. I'm not going to deny anything outside the 2 days. That's just radically changed. Because I know I would state, no magic can ever stand. I'm just going to give an alternate solution. I'm not saying the magic doesn't exist. I'm just going to give something else where humans are possible to exist. Outside of the 2 days, don't care. Don't care what kind of magic is shown. Don't care. That's not my problem. That is not what I am here to solve. I am here for the 2 days, the murders, that's it. Outside of that range is not the game board, is not something I have to deny or accept. That just goes across the board. And I think that's going to be the key difference in how I approach this from how I've been approaching it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and get into episode 6. I'm really curious to see if they actually just outright say the truth or just they hint heavily at the truth. Regardless, I'm very interested in seeing it. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I might have another episode out tonight just because it's a little shorter than usual. Or I might do this after another video. Regardless, you'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a hell of a fun adventure. I didn't think my feelings for how I'd be approaching these things would change so dramatically. Yeah, I'll turn the title screen. I didn't think my emotions and reactions to everything would change so much with how everything's been going, but and they have for fucking sure. And hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to share the videos around if you feel so inclined to. If you know someone that might want to watch the series, go ahead and send this over to them. But I'm going to go ahead and get into 6 and start going insane probably because Erica will be there again. And I don't want to deal with her again. Thank you guys so much and have a great day.